Hello, this is video number 2 in my Tammy's project series, and this is a project for my friend Tammy. This was a folio that I had made about a year ago, and I showed how it flipped out on the first video and a few of the little cards that go in it. But this time I want to recreate this folio, both for myself, for future me's, and anybody else that wants one. And I made one little change, and it has to do with this right here, but it's not going to affect the project. And so it's a Ephemera folio. And what you're going to use are 3 manila file folders and 1 or 2 pieces of manila paper. You're going to cover it with your paper pack. She gave me a paper pack, I have it somewhere, but I made the folio and then I covered each of the panels by cutting down the paper just a hair from each of the dimensions, and we'll go through that. Okay, try to do this without sneezing. So here's my prototype. I wrote here, you can have a big beautiful image here. It will flip open. You can have another big beautiful image or a pocket, it's up to you. This is just a suggested pocket area, and I'll have a flip pocket here, flip pocket here. This is just one. So this has not been glued together. So we'll go through how to do this, hopefully. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do is cut down my file folders. I am not going to be using the tab sections. So the first thing I'm going to do is just cut those off. And I'm going to open them and then cut them and it's not gonna need to be exact at this moment because we'll cut them down even further, most likely. So I just stick it in here and just do a quick little zhoosh. You could save these. They would make good tabs for another project. And then I know that my folio, I have a specific height. You could leave this height as is, or you could, if you're doing a tall or big journal, but mine, I know I want to match what I have already done so that I can install 2 into a book with eyelets in the spine. And that will make sense as we go along. So I'm just cutting off these edges. And as you're going through, don't be afraid to write on your manila folders, because with a pencil, in case you write on a gusset, because we're going to cover them up with papers later. Okay, so I have my 3 done, and I know that my desired height of this, which I want to match, is 9 inches. So now I need to cut them down this way to 9 inches. A good way is to take your spine so that you know you're cutting the right area, and cut it at 9 inches. And save these if you want. My blade is not sharp enough to do all of them at once, so I'm trying to match them up. Let's see. There are a million different ways to do this project. This is just my way, one of my ways. So you do you. Seek out other videos. Okay, so I'm going to deconstruct this prototype so that we can work on the left portion first. Okay. So this is going to go aside, if I can remember where I put it. Okay, so very first is going to be what I call my left inner panel and my left base. I'm gonna work on that first. And this is what I'm trying to model it after. So I know that right here is about a 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little more, but I'm going to use the natural fold of the file folder for this gusset. And this gusset here is right here. So I'm gonna put this down. You can write here if you're making a prototype, or lightly write in here, open gusset, so you know nothing is going to be glued on top of this little strip right here. And you can write left inner panel here, because you're going to cover that up. Left base. And I know that I want to cover these two natural folds. Okay. So in my base, in my real one, this is my left base. This is my inner panel. Here is my gusset. So I know that I need a piece that will cover this left base, and I'm going to call it the middle base. It's going to go underneath. And I know that it needs to cover these two. So for this measurement across here is about 7 1/8, maybe 7 1/4. So you'll cut your next piece to match that. Where did it go? So here are my two pieces. My prototype up. I'm going to start with this one. Take one of your file folders that you cut. Find a natural fold right here. Make sure your other two natural folds are on the right. And go ahead and fold your gusset. Smush it down. A little bit stiff. Oh, excuse me. Oh, allergies. Okay. So I know this is going to be my left inner base panel. And this is my open gusset. So I'm going to put a G for gusset. And that will erase. So I know that this piece, my inner panel, has to be able to close inside of here. Okay? And I know that I want both of my folders to be the same height because they're going to be in a book together. So I know that I need to cut this piece down to 7 1/8 from here to here. So I'll get my Cricut. When you're making a prototype, which I would suggest doing first because measurements can get wonky, you'll have to cut and recut. You might start with a full-size file folder just for the sake of it. Okay, so I know that I want from this line right here to be to here to be 7 1/8 inch. So let's see if we can get it on there. 7 1/8 inch. And I'm gonna trim this off. This I'm gonna call my left base. And this piece will be glued on top of what's going to be in our next section, the middle base. But for right now, we know that from here to here is 7 1/8 inches. So I'm going to take another file folder piece, and I want to be able to have this piece butt right up against this open gutter. And I want the natural folds to be on the right. So we'll have this. And then this. This section needs to be just a little bit narrower, which you're going to want to make sure your gussets will fold in like that with no buckling. And then you're gonna, this section here is going to be what attaches it to the spine. It's gonna be equivalent to this piece right here. So you have your left, your base, or your inner panel, your left, and your base. I know, it sounds confusing. So I want to be able to trim, I have to trim this down. And I'm keeping the natural folds keeping all of these natural folds for eyelets to go here. So it needs to be, I have wide eyelets, so it needs to be pretty wide. So let's fold on the natural folds. This is your piece number 2. So if you lay this on top, just inside where there's a little gap and make a mark over here. You're going to cover these two portions of your left base piece, which is my bottom piece here. I'm going to cover these two natural folds, so I want to have it butt up against the third fold. So I have it butted up against this fold, natural fold, and I want to make a mark right here. Nope, nope, I want to cover this. This gets covered. So I want to take off just a little bit right here. Maybe a 1/4 of an inch, so that I cover the two natural folds there. Might not even need the arm. Line it up as best you can. Let's see if I did that right. Luckily, file folders are pretty cheap. Okay, so this will cover that and fit right there. All right. Now you can see this piece is going to be too long. It will not fit. It's too long. So we're going to trim that down, and I'm going to trim it down quite a bit. So this was my left base. I'm going to mark on here. This I'm calling my middle base, which is 1/8 inch narrower than the left base. So we did that. I'm going to call this my middle base. And for notes for me, I'm going to put left base glues on top of this layer. So this will glue on here all the way to that, covering these two natural folds. And there's going to be a section where we talk about adding a flip out pocket before we glue anything down. Okay, so we have our left inner panel and our left base done. We have the middle base done. We're going to be working on the right panel. I'll show you what the right panel looks like in here. So here we have inner panel, left base, middle base gets glued on top of that to make it 2 layers thick. So this is the next part, right panel 1, right panel 2. Okay. I think this is way confusing, but it's not really, once you do it a couple of times. So this is going to be my right number 1 panel. So we know this glues to here. Put a couple of paper clips, might help me. And before you glue them, you'll adjust your height if you didn't get them the exact same height before you start gluing on your cardstock pieces. Okay, so right panel 1. We have our middle base. This is going to be our spine, connection point to the spine of the book. So our third file folder this panel of our third file folder will glue to the right panel. It'll glue right here. Pick the side that will allow you to have a gutter here. So if I were to turn and use this panel with the natural folds, I would not have a natural gutter here. That's just not helpful. I like to use the natural gutters. So I'm going to turn it this way. And I know that this side will glue on top of right panel 1, just right up against that spine. And so I'm going to use 2 of the natural folds for gussets, and I'm going to fold along this one here. I hope that you can see that. I haven't got my lighting figured out for this room. So I'm gonna fold on the third third fold line and the 4th natural fold line. If you don't have your file folders where the natural fold lines are right there, you can make fold lines, or you can assemble this whole thing out of just manila papers that you cut down to the same size and create your own gussets. So this one, so this will give me a 2 with natural fold gusset there, if that makes sense. And this will be covered. Okay. So this looks like it's a good length to fit within. If it had hung over the spine for some reason, you would have had to trim it back to somewhere beyond this spine fold. And I like to do it, I guess, about 3/4 of an inch. So let's see if we've done this right. You could even do this with double-sided paper that's pretty thick. Okay, so from the right, you have this 2 natural fold width gusset. And then from the left, you have this 1 natural fold gusset. This is a little bit too long right here. See how it won't fit? So I'm going to trim this off about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch maybe? Yeah, 1/2 an inch, let's do it. A little bit long. So it helps to pin them together, like pinning together an outfit that you're making. Just make sure everything works. Where's my 1/2 inch? Your file folders, the way you cut them and turn them may be different than mine, so pinning them together helps you see. Okay, so for some flip out pockets, I just have one flip out pocket in this section, but you can see it has a gusset, and then there's a hidden piece under here, which I call a flange, and I make it 3/4 of an inch or a whole inch just to give it some anchoring. And that's where you would do that before gluing things down, of course, because you're going to glue that flange in there. So what I've done here is just a manila paper, 8.5 by 11, to create this tall pocket. I cut my height to 6 inches. So cut off whatever's left over, 6 inches. And then on the scoreboard, I scored 1 inch and then 1/4 of an inch past that, so 1 1/4. That gives me my anchor point, my gutter, and fold it in so that the edge butts up against your 1 1/4 inch mark, score mark, right there. So this will be your anchor point. So you're going to decide where would you like it. Could go in here, like this. Be careful not to glue over your score lines. So I know that I want my half moon shape right here. So just use your hole punch. And I want some taller tags, so I know I want to kind of glue it down a little bit low. So when I go to assemble this, this will be glued down, and then your panel will be glued on top of your other panel. And they fit, they're about the same size. You'll have a piece of paper from your paper pack here, and you'll ink all of your edges if you want. See if I can find my short pocket somewhere. For my short pocket, which I've lost, I took the 8.5 by 11 sheet of manila paper and cut it in half lengthwise at 4 1/4 to give me 2 strips that are exactly the same height. You could score it first so that your score lines will be on both of them before you do the cut. So you'd score over 1 inch, score over an additional 1/4 of an inch. If you keep your inner pocket gussets at 1/4 of an inch or less, you will not exceed the limits of your folds in your folio. So if I had made this gusset taller, it wouldn't fold in. And then just use your paper pad to cut pieces. I don't measure, I just lay my paper pad on there, and I end up cutting some wrong pieces, but that's fine. You can use them for little pockets on your pockets. Nothing is ever wrong. It's fixable or can be used in another project. I wish I could find my small pocket. But anyway, so I have this from one of my cutoff sections. It's kind of helpful to me when I'm putting it together, trying to design it, to just say, okay, I want a pocket, say here, and just make you a little notation. This is gonna be a pocket, you know, do it better than that. And then this will be a pocket with a half moon. The sky is the limit. So in a future video, I'm going to have 2 of these, and I'm going to show how I'm going to mount them with eyelets side by side on those big spine sections. And they'll be mounted in a big book for her. And they'll kind of lay like this. I may go back through this prototype and shorten some of these distances, but once you put this together a couple of times, you're going to figure it out. So if I wanted to make this the same height as this, so that they don't stick out, this back piece doesn't stick out. So I have it sticking out a whole 2 inches. I would go back to the drawing board and I know that this is my 3rd piece. I'm going to just put him to the side. I know that this piece doesn't need to be any bigger than this section right here. So I can just make a little mark. I'm going to lop this off. And that it could be, if you wanted it to be bigger, it could be the back section. So I have that, and so I know that this piece now needs to be shortened because this will fold over here. So this needs to be shortened to right where this fits inside. And I know I'm not going to cover this spine, so it's going to go kind of right there. Slice this off. Trying to see if it lines up with any kind of line. It doesn't. Writing on it will help you keep your gussets so that will glue right there. Those match. Now what I have created is a right flap that is too long, so I need to cut it down so that it will fit in there. So I'm just gonna guesstimate that I want it to be this short because I might have a pocket on the inside, a flip pocket. So let's cut that right there. The sky's the limit with working on these file folders. Almost like you could just pick up a couple file folders, start folding and bending and gluing, and make your own design. So this will glue right on top of here, and those edges will fit. This panel now fits inside. We'll have a two width natural fold gusset there. And then you can start inserting your pockets. So if I were to take this, which I'm going to, and start actually working on it, I'm going to line all of my top pieces up and see which pieces do I need to just kind of trim a little of the, so I didn't get them exactly 9 inches. Just stack them up and get them cut just exactly right. All right, I hope this has been helpful and not hurtful and not confusing. I know it is probably confusing with all the different flips and flaps, but you'll get it. You'll get it. It's all part of the learning process, and we learn by making mistakes. So make mistakes. That's what puts it in your brain as, oh, don't do it that way, do it this way. If you did it right the first time, every time, you're not going to learn anything. So be patient with yourself. File folders are cheap, and I would suggest clipping it with paper clips, writing your own notes. Dimensions are kind of a, you know, if you know how deep you want your book, how wide you want your book to be, then that would be your dimension of your left base. That's going to be your width. Or your height. Because you know that this spine is going to lay flat, and this will be the height of the whole project. Roughly. So good luck. If you make one, post a comment or a picture and let me know how it worked out. I hope you didn't tear your hair out or need an extra glass of wine to get through this. But good luck. Thanks for watching. And in a third video, I'm going to, or maybe fourth video, I'm going to assemble this all into a covered book. Cloth covered book, hopefully. All right, thanks so much. Bye-bye.